You have exactly 24 hours to find a husband, Sarah, or this house will be sold. Uncle Roger's words cut through the cold porch air like a death sentence. He wasn't screaming, he was smiling. With a sharp flick of his wrist, he tossed a legal document onto the rain-soaked table right in front of Sarah, who was trembling in her black morning dress. What? Roger, what are you talking about? Sarah stammered, clutching a photo of her late grandmother to her chest. Roger tapped his manicured finger on the paper. Mom's will is clear. A protection clause. You only inherit the house if you are legally married within 30 days of her passing. Today is day 29, Sarah. The deadline is tomorrow at 5 p.m. He deliberately kept that information from her, unethical as it was, knowing full well she wouldn't have enough time to fight back. Sarah felt the ground disappear beneath her. But I don't have anyone. That's impossible. Roger simply adjusted his expensive suit and pointed to a for sale sign lying in the grass. Then I suggest you start looking, because if you don't show up at the courthouse with a marriage certificate by the end of the day tomorrow, I'm evicting you and selling everything. The real estate market doesn't wait for weeping old maids. Can you imagine the cruelty of someone using their own mother's death to throw their niece onto the street? It's heartbreaking. If you believe family should protect and not destroy, hit that like button right now. Let's see how many of us are on Sarah's side. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe to follow this race against time. Will she make it? To understand how Sarah ended up in this nightmare, we need to look at the truth. Because Uncle Roger was lying. Grandma Eloise loved her granddaughter more than anything. It was Sarah who cared for her for 3 years, bathing her, feeding her, and loving her, while Roger only showed up to ask for money. So, how did that cruel clause end up in the will? It all happened 2 weeks before the end, in a hospital room. Sarah had stepped out for just 30 minutes to pick up medicine. That was the opening Roger had been waiting for. He walked into the room with a black briefcase and a look of fake concern. Mom, wake up. We have a crisis, he whispered into the frail woman's ear. Eloise opened her tired eyes. She trusted her son, the lawyer. Roger, what is it? Is Sarah okay? No, Mom. That's why I'm here, he lied, pulling out a stack of forged papers he had printed himself. I investigated Sarah's finances, Mom. She's addicted to gambling. She owes $50,000 to the banks. If the house stays in her name, creditors will seize everything next week. She'll be homeless. The poor woman began to cry, her heart monitor beeping rapidly. It was a filthy lie. Sarah had never gambled in her life. But Roger pressed his mother's weak spot, the fear of seeing her granddaughter helpless. What do? I have to save the house for her, Eloise moaned. Roger smiled internally and handed her a pen. Sign this amendment. We'll say she only inherits if she has a husband. A husband brings legal stability. It protects the estate from her debts. It's for her own good, Mom. Sign it. Trembling and crying, believing she was protecting Sarah's future, the grandmother signed. She died never knowing she had just handed over the weapon her son would use to steal his own niece's inheritance. Back in the present, Roger got into his luxury car and rolled down the window for one last warning. Tomorrow, Sarah, 5 p.m. No husband, no house. He sped off, leaving Sarah alone in the rain. She ran inside and started desperately calling lawyers. But the reality was brutal. I need $3,000 just to file an emergency motion, the first lawyer said. Sarah looked at her bank account, $42. Without an injunction before the deadline, the executor has total power, the court clerk told her. The trap was perfect. Roger had waited until the last 24 hours on purpose. He knew Sarah had neither the money nor the time to fight. She sat on the hallway floor and hugged her knees. She was going to lose the home where she grew up. She was going to lose her grandmother's memories. She was going to lose the only roof over her head, but she couldn't afford to break down now. She had a shift at the diner at 6 p.m. If she didn't show up, she'd be fired and wouldn't even have money for food. Wiping her tears with the back of her hand, she put on her blue uniform and went out to face the saddest night of her life. The Rusty Spoon was a simple diner, filled with truckers and tired workers. Rain lashed against the windows. Sarah was serving tables on autopilot, her eyes swollen and her soul in pieces. At table 4 sat Mark. He was a regular, a quiet mechanic who always came in with his 6-year-old daughter, little Lily. Mark wore grease-stained clothes and heavy boots, with the tired look of someone carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, but he always treated Sarah with respect. That night, as Lily drew on a placemat, Mark couldn't take his eyes off Sarah. He noticed the tremor in her hands. He saw the pain she was trying to hide behind a fake smile. Mark knew pain. His wife had walked out on him 2 years ago, leaving him alone with a young daughter and a mountain of bills. "Daddy, is Sarah crying?" Lily asked softly. Before Mark could answer, Sarah's phone vibrated. It was a text from Roger. "The buyers arrive tomorrow at 5:05 p.m. Be out." The shock made Sarah's hand slip. The coffee pot slid and shattered on the floor, spraying hot coffee and glass shards everywhere. "Sarah!" screamed the manager, Dave, storming out of the kitchen. "That's the 3rd time. You're fired if you don't clean this up right now. I don't pay you to daydream." Silence fell over the diner. Sarah dropped to her knees to pick up the shards, but she couldn't take it anymore. She covered her face and began to sob loudly, right there on the dirty floor. "I can't do it. I'm going to lose my house. I need a husband in 24 hours, or he'll take everything from me." It was a cry of pure despair that made everyone uncomfortable. Everyone except one man. Mark slowly put his fork down. He looked at his daughter, who looked scared and sad for her favorite waitress. "Daddy, help her," the little girl pleaded. Mark stood up. He was tall, strong, a simple man. He walked over to Sarah, ignoring the angry manager, and knelt in the middle of the spilled coffee. "Hey, Sarah," he said in his deep, calm voice. She looked up, her face wet with tears. "Mark, I'm sorry. I'm losing my mind. My uncle. The will. If I'm not married by tomorrow, I'll be on the street." The manager huffed. "Too much drama. Get up, girl." Mark stood up and squared his shoulders at the manager. "She's on a break, Dave. Put the damages on my tab and give us 5 minutes." The manager, seeing Mark's size and the look in his eyes, backed off without a word. Mark helped Sarah sit at the table with Lily. The little girl held the waitress's hand. Mark looked deep into Sarah's eyes. "You said you need a husband to save your house?" he asked seriously. "It's the only way," she sobbed. "But it's impossible." Mark looked at the rain outside, then at his daughter, and made a decision that would change everyone's life. "I have my ID and my divorce certificate in the glove box of my truck," he said, with the simple tone of a man fixing a broken engine. "I don't have any plans tomorrow. If you need a name on a piece of paper to stop that jerk, you can use mine." Sarah stared at the man sitting across from her in the booth. The rain was still hammering against the diner window, but for the first time that day, the noise seemed distant. All she could hear was the steady rhythm of Mark's voice offering her a lifeline. You would really do that?" Sarah stammered, wiping a smudge of mascara from her cheek. "Mark, we hardly know each other. Marriage is legal. It's messy. If we do this, you're legally tied to my debt, my problems, everything." Mark took a sip of his coffee. He didn't look like a man who made rash decisions. He looked like a man who calculated the load before lifting the beam. "I'm not worried about the mess, Sarah. I'm a mechanic. I fix messes for a living." He looked down at his daughter, Lily, who had fallen asleep with her head on Sarah's arm. The little girl looked peaceful, safe. "Look at her," Mark said softly. "She trusts you. She hasn't smiled much since her mom left. But she smiles when she sees you. That's enough of a character reference for me." Sarah looked down at the sleeping child. A warmth spread through her chest, a feeling she hadn't felt since her grandmother died. She realized Mark wasn't doing this for money or attention. He was doing it because he was a good man. "But why?" Sarah whispered. "What do you get out of this?" Mark's expression hardened slightly. "I hate bullies, and I know what it's like to lose your home because you didn't have the right paperwork. My ex-wife, she had a good lawyer. I didn't. I slept in my truck for 3 months so I could keep paying child support. I swore if I ever saw someone getting crushed by the system again, I wouldn't just stand by and watch." He pulled a $20 bill from his wallet and placed it on the table. "I'll pick you up at 8:00 a.m. Wear something white if you have it. We're going to City Hall." While Sarah was finding a glimmer of hope, Uncle Roger was sitting in his high-rise apartment on the other side of town. To the outside world, Roger was a success story. He wore Italian suits, drove a silver Mercedes, and drank $50 scotch. But as he sat alone in his leather chair, the phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and his face went pale. It was a restricted number. Roger answered, his voice trembling. "Hello? Mr. Miller," a deep, distorted voice said on the other end. "It's been 30 days. The interest has compounded. You owe the firm $180,000. We need payment by Friday." Roger wiped sweat from his forehead. I know. Listen, I have a liquid asset coming through. A house. It's prime real estate. I'm listing it tomorrow at 5:00 p.m. I'll have the cash in escrow by next week. Don't disappoint us, Roger. We aren't as patient as your family. You have 48 hours. The line went dead. Roger stared at his reflection in the dark window. This wasn't just about greed anymore. It was about survival. He was drowning in secret gambling debts and bad investments. He was a fake rich man living on borrowed time. He needed Sarah to fail. He needed that house sold immediately, or his empire of lies would crumble. And the people coming for him wouldn't just sue him. They would break his legs. He poured another drink, his hand shaking. "She won't find anyone," he muttered to himself, trying to calm his nerves. "Who would marry a broke waitress in 24 hours? The house is mine." The next morning, the sun struggled to break through the gray clouds. At exactly 7:55 a.m., an old but well-maintained Ford pickup truck pulled up to Sarah's curb. Sarah stepped out onto the porch. She wasn't wearing a wedding dress. She wore a simple white sundress she used to wear to church with her grandmother. She held a small bouquet of wildflowers she had picked from the garden. She looked beautiful, but terrified. Mark stepped out of the truck and opened the door for her. He had traded his grease-stained t-shirt for a clean button-down shirt and a navy blazer that was slightly too tight in the shoulders. "Ready?" he asked. "I think I'm going to throw up," Sarah admitted, clutching her purse. Mark smiled, a rare, genuine smile that made his eyes crinkle. "Don't worry, I've been married before. The hard part isn't saying I do. The hard part is finding someone worth saying it to." They drove to City Hall in silence, the radio playing low country music. Lily was in the back seat, kicking her legs happily. She didn't understand the legal stakes. She just knew she got to spend the day with her dad and her favorite lady from the diner. At the courthouse, the line was long. Sarah checked her phone. 10:30 a.m. The clock was ticking. "Next!" shouted the clerk behind the glass partition. They stepped up. "We need a marriage license," Mark said firmly. "And we need a judge to waive the waiting period. It's an emergency." The clerk, a woman with glasses on a chain, looked over her spectacles. "What kind of emergency?" Mark didn't hesitate. He reached out and took Sarah's hand. His grip was warm and rough. "The kind where a family needs to be together today, ma'am, not tomorrow." The clerk looked at their joined hands, then at Lily holding onto Mark's leg. She softened. "Even bureaucracy has a heart sometimes. Fill this out. Judge Henderson is in session at 2:00 p.m. If you're lucky, he'll squeeze you in before his golf game." Let's pause here for a second. Put yourself in Sarah's shoes. She is marrying a man she barely knows, not for love, but to save her grandmother's legacy from a corrupt relative. Here is the question of the day. Do you think what Sarah and Mark are doing is wrong? Is it a lie? Or is it a noble act to protect the innocent from evil? Some people say marriage is sacred and shouldn't be used as a tool. Others say protecting your home and dignity is the most sacred thing of all. Tell me in the comments. Would you marry a stranger to save your home? Answer yes or no. I'm reading every comment. 2:15 p.m. The hallway of the courthouse smelled like floor wax and old paper. Sarah was pacing back and forth. "He's not going to call us," she whispered, panic rising in her throat. "It's too late. Roger is going to win." Mark stopped her pacing by placing his hands on her shoulders. "Sarah, breathe. We are not giving up. If we have to, I'll kick down the door." Just then, the bailiff opened the heavy oak doors. "Miller and Evans, the judge will see you now." The ceremony took exactly 6 minutes. It wasn't romantic in the traditional sense. There were no flowers, no organ music. But when the judge asked Mark, "Do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Mark looked at Sarah. He didn't look at her like a victim. He looked at her with profound respect. "I do," Mark said. And he meant it. He was committing to protect her. When it was Sarah's turn, she looked at this stranger who had stepped up when everyone else looked away. Tears welled in her eyes. "I do. I now pronounce you husband and wife," the judge droned. "You may kiss the bride." Sarah hesitated. She expected a polite peck on the cheek, but Mark leaned in and kissed her softly, briefly, but with a tenderness that made her knees weak. It wasn't a show. It was a promise. They walked out into the afternoon sun holding the certificate. It was stamped 2:45 p.m. "We did it," Sarah breathed, staring at the paper. "I can't believe it." "Not yet." Mark checked his watch. "We have to get this document to your house before 5:00 p.m. Roger isn't going to take our word for it. We need to show him the seal." They stopped quickly for pizza because Lily was starving. It was 3:30 p.m. Sitting in the booth, sharing a pepperoni pizza, they looked like a real family. Sarah wiped tomato sauce off Lily's face, and Mark watched them with a strange look in his eyes, like he was remembering what happiness felt like. "You know," Sarah said, dipping her crust, "I still don't understand it. Grandma Eloise was the kindest woman I knew. Why would she sign that clause? It's like she became a different person." "Maybe she was confused?" Mark suggested. "She was old, but she wasn't senile," Sarah said, frowning. "She was sharp until the very end. Except for that one afternoon when I went to the pharmacy. When I came back, she was crying. She said she had a bad dream about me being homeless." Sarah paused, a dark realization forming in her mind. "Roger. He was there. I left him alone with her for 30 minutes. That was the only time I left her side in weeks." Mark's eyes narrowed. "Do you think he pressured her?" "I don't know," Sarah said, shaking her head. "I don't have any proof. All I know is that my grandmother loved me and Roger loves money. And right now, he's at my house waiting to throw me out." Mark stood up, dropping cash on the table. "We need to go. Proof or no proof, you are legally Mrs. Evans now, and nobody kicks Mrs. Evans out of her own home." They ran to the truck. 4:15 p.m. The showdown was 45 minutes away. The rain had turned into a torrential downpour by the time Mark's truck turned onto Oak Street. The wipers were slapping frantically against the windshield, struggling to clear the view, but what Sarah saw made her heart stop. It was 4:50 p.m., 10 minutes to the deadline. There were 3 cars parked in her driveway. One was Roger's silver Mercedes. The other 2 were luxury sedans belonging to strangers. A man in a beige raincoat, a realtor, was already hammering a wooden "sold" sign into the soft, wet grass of the front lawn. "No," Sarah gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "He's already sold it. He didn't even wait for the deadline." Mark gripped the steering wheel tighter, his knuckles turning white. "He hasn't sold anything yet. Not while I'm breathing." Mark pulled the truck up right onto the lawn, blocking the exit for the luxury cars. It was a bold, aggressive move. He killed the engine. "Stay close to me," he told Sarah, "and keep that certificate dry." They stepped out into the storm. Roger was standing on the porch, sheltered from the rain, holding a bottle of champagne. He was laughing with a couple, the potential buyers, who looked annoyed by the old truck tearing up the grass. When Roger saw Sarah, his smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. He looked manic. He looked like a man who was terrified of what would happen if this deal didn't close in the next hour. "You're late for the farewell party, Sarah," Roger shouted over the thunder. "Meet Mr. and Mrs. Gable. They are the new owners. They plan to tear down this old rot and build condos. Isn't that exciting?" Sarah felt a surge of nausea. "Tear it down? Grandma's house? You can't sell it, Roger," Sarah yelled, stepping onto the porch steps, drenched in rain. "The deadline is 5:00 p.m. It's 4:52 p.m. Roger checked his Rolex. He was sweating despite the cold. "Technicalities, my dear. You're single. You're broke. And I have a contract ready to be signed. Mr. Gable is a busy man. We're closing now." He turned to the buyers. "Ignore her. Just a disgruntled relative. Please, come inside. Let's sign the papers." "Nobody is signing anything." The voice wasn't Sarah's. It was a low, deep growl that cut through the noise of the storm. Mark stepped up onto the porch. He towered over Roger. He was wet, his hair plastered to his forehead, wearing a cheap blazer and work boots, but he looked more powerful than any man in a suit. Roger sneered, looking Mark up and down with disgust. "And who is this? The mover? The gardener? Tell him to wait by the truck, Sarah." Mark didn't blink. He didn't shout. He just stepped between Roger and Sarah, creating a human shield. "I'm not the gardener," Mark said calmly. I'm her husband." Silence fell over the porch. The only sound was the rain hitting the roof. Roger's face went from smug to confused, and then to a shade of pale gray. The buyers, Mr. and Mrs. Gable, exchanged awkward glances. "Excuse me?" Roger laughed nervously. "Husband? That's rich. Sarah doesn't have a boyfriend, let alone a husband." "Show him, Sarah," Mark said. Sarah reached into her purse and pulled out the envelope. Her hands were shaking, not from cold, but from adrenaline. She pulled out the document with the official embossed gold seal of the city clerk. She slapped it onto the table next to Roger's champagne bottle. "Read it, Uncle Roger. Certificate of marriage, dated today. Time stamped 2:45 p.m., witnessed by Judge Henderson." Sarah's voice grew stronger. "I fulfilled the clause. I am legally married within the 30-day window. The house is mine." Roger stared at the paper. His hands started to tremble violently. He grabbed the paper, bringing it close to his face, looking for a flaw, a mistake, anything. This is a fraud," Roger sputtered. "You picked up a bum off the street. This isn't a real marriage." "It's legal," Mark said, crossing his arms. "And unless you want to explain to a judge why you're trying to sell a property that doesn't belong to you, I suggest you tell these nice people to go home." Mr. Gable, the buyer, looked at Roger with suspicion. "Roger, you said the title was clear. If she's married, the probate clause is satisfied. We can't buy a contested property. We're leaving." "No! Wait!" Roger panicked, grabbing the buyer's arm. "Don't leave! It's a trick! I can fix this! I just need—" "Don't touch me," Mr. Gable snapped. He grabbed his wife and they hurried to their car. The deal was dead. Roger watched the buyers drive away. He watched his salvation, and the money he needed to pay the loan sharks, disappear down the road. He turned back to Sarah and Mark, his eyes wild with rage. The mask of the successful lawyer fell off completely. He was just a desperate, broken gambler. "You stupid girl!" Roger screamed, throwing the champagne glass against the wall. It shattered. "Do you have any idea what you've done? I needed that money. They're going to kill me." "That's not my problem," Sarah said coldly. "Get off my porch." "It's not your porch!" Roger lunged at her, grabbing her arm. "I orchestrated this whole thing! I wrote the clause! I made sure you wouldn't be able to keep it!" Mark moved faster than lightning. He grabbed Roger's wrist and twisted it, forcing him to let go of Sarah. He shoved Roger back against the porch railing. "Don't you ever touch her again," Mark warned, his voice dangerous. Roger was panting, defeated. In his fury, his mouth moved faster than his brain. "It wasn't supposed to end like this," he yelled, tears of frustration mixing with sweat. "Damn it! All that work to trick the old lady for nothing." The air froze. Sarah stepped forward. "What did you say?" Roger realized his mistake too late. He clamped his mouth shut, but the truth was out. Sarah walked up to him, her eyes blazing. "You tricked her. You admitted it. You told her lies about me to get her to sign that amendment." Roger slumped against the railing, realizing he had lost everything. "She was old, Sarah. She had assets sitting there doing nothing. I have debts. I have people coming for me. I just needed a temporary loan." "Why go through all this trouble, Roger? Why create a fake marriage clause? Why didn't you just make her sign the house over to you?" Sarah asked. "Do you think I didn't try? That old woman was stubborn as a mule. She refused to disinherit you. She said, 'Sarah gets the house no matter what.' She loved you too much to cut you out." Roger's eyes were full of venom. "So I had to play her game. I had to convince her that the only way to save the house from your imaginary debts was to put it in a trust until you were settled. I knew you couldn't find a husband in 2 weeks. I designed the trap so you would fail, and the estate would revert to me legally. It was perfect." "You stole her peace of mind on her deathbed," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling with rage. "You made her die thinking I was a failure. That is unforgivable." Mark stepped in. "Get out. Now. Before I call the cops and tell them about the fraud you just confessed to. And if I see your car on this street again, the sheriff will be the least of your problems." Roger looked at Mark, then at Sarah. He saw a wall of strength he couldn't break. He grabbed his briefcase, looking like a beaten dog, and ran to his car. He sped away into the rain, driving toward a future that included bankruptcy, loan sharks, and likely prison. The sound of Roger's engine faded. The rain began to slow down, turning into a gentle drizzle. Sarah stood on the porch, staring at the empty driveway. Her knees gave out. She started to fall, but strong arms caught her. Mark held her up. "I got you. You're okay. It's over." Sarah buried her face in his chest and cried. But these weren't tears of despair like yesterday. They were tears of relief. She felt the rough fabric of his jacket, smelled the faint scent of rain and motor oil. She felt safe. Lily, who had been watching from the truck, ran up to the porch and hugged Sarah's legs. "Did the bad man go away?" she asked. Sarah wiped her eyes and knelt down to hug the little girl. "Yes, sweetie. He's gone. He's never coming back." Mark looked around at the old peeling paint, the overgrown garden, and the sold sign lying in the mud. "Well," Mark said, scratching the back of his neck, "this place needs a lot of work. The roof has a leak, the gutters are clogged, and that railing is loose." Sarah looked up at him. "I know. I don't have money to pay a contractor yet." Mark smiled, picking up the sold sign and breaking it over his knee. "Good thing you married a mechanic who works for free. Husband privileges, right?" Sarah laughed. It was a genuine, light sound. "Husband privileges," she repeated. The word didn't sound scary anymore. The sun is shining on 402 Oak Street. The house is painted a fresh, bright white. The garden is blooming. On the porch, Mark is fixing a loose board. Lily is playing in the yard with a puppy. Sarah comes out with 2 glasses of lemonade. She isn't wearing a uniform. She looks happy. They didn't annul the marriage the next week, or the week after that. Sarah and Mark found out that sometimes family isn't about blood. Blood gave Sarah an uncle who tried to destroy her. But fate gave her a stranger who was willing to fight for her. They started backwards. Marriage first, then friendship, and then something much deeper. They saved the house, but more importantly, they saved each other. Mark wasn't lonely anymore, and Sarah wasn't afraid anymore. As for Uncle Roger, his fall was fast and brutal. The very next week, the creditors he was running from seized everything. His silver Mercedes, his luxury apartment, even his expensive suits. It was all auctioned off to pay his gambling debts. He was left with nothing but the arrogance he wore like a cheap coat. But Roger didn't learn. Desperate to climb back up, he tried to pull a scam on another grieving family in the next county. But this time, he wasn't dealing with a grieving waitress. He messed with a family that had a sheriff in it. He was arrested for fraud, forgery, and attempted extortion. The man who tried to take a home from his own niece is now living in a 6x8 concrete cell, where the only thing he manages is the time on the clock. Sarah learned that day that even when the storm is at its worst, there is always hope. Sometimes help comes from the places you least expect. Sometimes it comes in a beat-up Ford truck with a little girl in the back seat. What about you? Do you believe that true love can grow from a difficult situation? Or do you think they were just lucky? If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs hope today. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell. Comment happiness so I know you've made it this far. I'm always reading the comments. Remember, a house is made of bricks and beams, but a home is made of love and loyalty. Thanks for watching and see you in the next story.